So, the Titans lost again, and usually I come on here and I'm just like, my faith in this team is decaying, and this is horrible and all this stuff. But at this point, I'm just embracing the tank, especially since the Texans announced that they're going to start their starters next week. What's good, y'all? Welcome back to the Titans Rundown. I am your host, Micah McCamey, and we lost again. We out-tanked the Jags. I didn't even think that was possible, honestly. But we did do it, and with the Giants winning, now we sit at the second pick with right in front of us the New England Patriots, who do not need a quarterback. Oh boy. Okay, so before we get into draft talk, obviously, we got to talk about the positives and negatives from this game. So, let's get right on into it. Starting out with the positives, most of this is just players. I mean, there's like one that is a whole group of people, but Skronsky absolutely balled 2 days ago as of the time that I'm recording this, 3 days ago as of the time that you were seeing this. But Skronsky absolutely killed it as the left guard this week. 0 sacks, 1 pressure allowed. Has been by far the best offensive lineman on this team this year, and by far the best offensive lineman, one of the better offensive linemen in the NFL over the past couple of weeks, honestly. Nobody's going to talk about it because he's a left guard on the Titans. Like, nobody's going to talk about that. But hey, we still are really appreciative of the work that our boy Peter Skronsky is doing, right? Okay. Next thing, Tajay Spears had about 20 carries for 92 yards, I believe. That dude, again, we owe Tajay a huge apology. Let's talk about that right now. I, for one, will apologize. I thought that he was just some like one-hit wonder, can't take running back 1 reps, and just isn't good enough to be nothing more than a running back 2. But I was completely wrong, and Tajay actually ended up being a lot better this week than I expected him to be. He was probably a league winner for a couple of people out there, quite honestly, at least in fantasy football. Yeah, Tajay, very strong, very solid week. Even in the middle of the tank, we still have some of these young players that we know, hey, we can build upon that. But next up, we have Calvin Ridley, like 4 receptions for 82 yards. He's creeping closer and closer and closer to the 1,000-yard mark, and I really want him to hit it just because everybody was telling us how horrible of an overpay it was. And I know that some people will look at the stats and be like, overpay, told you. But honestly, getting 1,000 yards after the way the year started, and especially after the way that our quarterbacks have been playing, is honestly one of the most impressive things that a receiver can do. Like, I mean, let's be real. Like, not that many receivers are getting 1,000 yards with Will Levis and Mason Rudolph comboing each other. Let's take a look at George Pickens. He had like 1 really good game with Mason Rudolph, but that was really about it. But yeah, no, this Calvin Ridley has been such a great player this year, and I've been really appreciative of that, to say the least, especially whenever this roster has not had that many great players. You just got to appreciate the ones that, are playing a little better than everybody else, man. Like, you just really got to appreciate it. Next player, we have Chig. Whew, man, Chig, another dude that we may need to owe an apology to. Like, Chig, we thought he was out, like, we thought that he was going to be in a tight end committee with, like, him, Josh Wiley, and Nick Vanette, apparently. But he actually has looked really solid over the past couple of weeks. Like, you saw how he did against the Bengals. You saw what he did against the Texans. He had like 1 big reception that ended up being a touchdown that ended up winning us that football game. And also, you saw him this week also played pretty solid. That's why he's in the positives, obviously. But like, he's playing good football right now. Like Brian Callahan said in his press conference, he's playing at a different level than he has been. He's playing fast. He's playing physical. He's just playing so much better than I think people were expecting him to in this season. So, Chig, way to go. I think you've secured tight end 1 for the next couple of years. So, that's nice. All right. But then we got to move on to the negatives of today, which could also be considered the positives at the same time because, bad play will give us higher draft picks. So, however you want to look at it. But, okay, first negative, J.C. Latham, 1 sack allowed on 5 pressures. Now, I know that everybody's taking a crap on him and is just like, oh, JC Latham, we need to move him back to right tackle and all this other stuff, it would not have changed what happened on Sunday. Okay, I'm just going to let y'all know that right now. No matter what, he would have had to go up against Trevon Walker and Hines Allen. Like, no matter what, he was going to probably get dog walked today, if we're being real. And remember, this is his first year playing left tackle since high school. So obviously there are going to be some growing pains going into this, but I still feel like that he has shown enough flashes as a left tackle to be considered the future of the Titans at left tackle. Okay. And I don't understand what Brian Callahan's saying whenever he says, whenever he's not guaranteeing that there's a future with this dude, because I can promise you there should be a 100% future with this guy. Even if he's had some bad games and has had some bad stats on the year, just trust me, he's still pretty stinking solid. That's all I gotta say about that. And I just wanted to defend my boy, JC Latham. Next thing, D-line. D-line has continued to be just absolutely awful. Like, I guess Big Jeff and T'Vondre Sweat are at least trying on the run stop. Not D-line in general, but D-line more in pass rush, because, obviously, Big Jeff, T'Vondre Sweat, not really their job to go in there and just get a bunch of sacks. It's their job more to just, hold on the D-line. Again, Arden Key was highly graded by PFF, but he didn't really do that great. And same thing with Harold Landry. We had 2 sacks on the day, which is a little bit more than usual, so that's nice. But still, it just was not a good game for the pass rush again, and that is why that's maybe our biggest need going into the draft. Yeah, I said it. It might be a bigger need than right tackle even was. It's honestly kind of insane that I thought right tackle was going to be far and away the biggest need, but defensive edge is potentially significantly a bigger need, which is, again, let's be real, we were not expecting that, especially going into the season when we thought the D-line was going to be really stinking good. And here's the thing, I wouldn't say just give up on Harold Landry yet, because I think Harold Landry is a really good pass rusher whenever he has a better pass rusher with him. You saw it in the Danico Autry years. Whenever Danico Autry was there, Harold Landry was able to do a lot more because there was somebody else that would take up the double teams while he would go do the cleanup work or just get a one-on-one with a bad offensive lineman and get right to him. But anyway, yeah, pass rush needs to be addressed. We'll talk about that here in just a few minutes, I guess. But again, D-line's pass rush, gosh, got to get better. Next thing is Corey Levin. I can't remember if he was the center or the guard today, or on Sunday at least, but 1 sack, 5 pressures, same thing with Latham. After that second half against the Colts, I thought, man, we might have something with Corey Levin after he allowed 0 sacks and 1 pressure, but he went back to being a backup center, to say the least, in this last game, and he just wasn't amazing, to say the least. You could have looked at some of these other dudes and been like, oh yeah, they weren't great, but they weren't awful either. And don't get me wrong, Levin wasn't awful, but I don't even know. He was bad, honestly, and that is kind of trashy. And unlike Latham, who is a rookie and is a young rookie and still has time to develop, Levin has been in the league for multiple years. So who knows? He may be a late bloomer, but as it stands right now, probably not going to be the future center of the Tennessee Titans. I mean, I felt like that was obvious enough with Lloyd Cushenberry is probably going to be back next year, if I had to take a guess, next season at some point. But yeah, that's really all I got to say about Corey Levin. And the last criticism, Jarvis Brownlee Jr. Okay, so this isn't a complete shot at Jarvis Brownlee. Again, rookie, developing, showed great flashes. He's a lot like Latham in those ways, but he got dog walked by Brian Thomas Jr. Obviously, he is kind of a freak, might be the best receiver in this entire class, if we're being honest, but come on, man. He was not doing anything. He wasn't even holding his own against Brian Thomas Jr. But here we are, I guess. It's going to be real. This is also talking about JBJ gives me an excuse to talk about Brian Thomas Jr. That dude's going to be a problem for the next couple of years. Titans fans, be warned. This could be a very rough couple of years having to have one of our DBs guard Brian Thomas Jr. because, you can have Mac Jones out there and he'll still put up 100 yards and a touchdown. Like, it's ridiculous. And I thought he was going to be a bust whenever I heard, he wasn't really talkative that much in training camp, and I don't know, I didn't trust that development staff, and it felt like all that he did was run one route, and that was just straight down the field streaking. But I was wrong, apparently. Like, I admit that, and I apologize to, I don't know why you would be here, Jags fans, but to Jags fans and Brian Thomas Jr. in general. But, man, I'm not happy to face that dude for the next couple of years. But anyway, yeah, no, JBJ didn't do anything against him. Wish that he could have, but Jarvis Brownlee Jr., brother, you got to get better, right? But, all right, we got to talk about draft scenarios going into the second part of this episode. Who will we take? Because I feel like there are 4 options that we will truly consider taking. So let's take a look at those. So first off, we have Shedeur Sanders. And I don't like to admit this, but I think it's the most likely one. And the reason I don't like to admit this is because, first off, he played really bad in his most recent bowl game. But also, I don't know. I don't like the competition that he played against. Okay? Like, I get it. He was just kind of okay. He was just kind of okay in that year 1, and then that year 2, he just exploded and developed really well, and everybody was just like, we got to go draft Shedeur. But, like, man, I just... Like, what worries me is that the Titans are, quote-unquote, high on Shedeur, not because they're actually interested and think that he's a really good player, but because it would be a Hail Mary to save their jobs. That is something that worries me. It also worries me that maybe they just want the team to make more money. We would make a big profit if we drafted Deion Sanders' son. Like, that's just the truth. But also, I don't know, I just question his leadership skills, and it just worries me. I feel like that if we draft him, we're going to get held back a couple of years. Now, here's the thing. If we do draft him, I will be your number 1 Shedeur Sanders fan. Like, I'm not going to be, man, I know that it's kind of petty to bring up at this point, but I'm not going to be like Tic Tac, who, like, whenever we drafted Devondre Sweat, he called it a disaster from the start. And then whenever training camp footage started coming out about him, he just completely bashed every little thing that he did. Like, it was almost like he was trolling at that point. Like, it was really stupid. But, like, I won't be that dude who just looks at Shedeur Sanders' clips and been like, look at the way he throws that ball. It looks a little lazy, don't you think? Like, no, I'm not going to do that, okay? I'm still going to get behind him if we do draft him, but I don't know. I'm just not the biggest fan of the idea of Shedeur Sanders. But he does show decent qualities, like he's good with timing throwing, and he has decent enough accuracy. He's mobile. He's got decent arm strength, too. It's just, I don't know. Like, it just worries me. I'm concerned about that pick. And here's the thing. If this was, like, provenly competent front office, like, we knew that these dudes were competent and good at their jobs, then I would be like, well, shoot, yeah, let's go get Shedeur if they truly believe in him. But these two, they haven't proven to be completely competent yet. I mean, Carthen maybe kind of, but even then, he's made some bad moves, trading Elijah Molden. The trade for L'Jarius Sneed could end up being pretty bad. I mean, I'm not too sure if it will end up being pretty bad, but it has potential to end up being bad. Cushenberry tore his Achilles. But he did also make some good signings like Ridley, and shoot, there was another one. Oh man, what was his name? Dang it. Oh yeah, and Pollard as well. He's made some good signings, and the draft, I mean, hello, he's been awesome in the draft. Like, he's gotten Skronsky, Spears, Sweat, Latham, Jarvis Brownlee Jr., like, all 5 of those dudes have shown flashes of being competent or have at least looked like they're going to be all right in the league for the next couple of years. Like, I like showing, like, that makes me trust Carthen's drafting ability, and it makes me trust that, maybe Shedeur is actually really good, but I don't know. The last quarterback that he drafted was Will Levis, which, again, that was just a shot in the dark, second round. You weren't expecting him to be there type of thing. And also Vrabel It's been rumored that Vrabel actually pushed for that more than Carthen did. So who knows about that situation? But anyway, Shedeur, I don't like it because I don't trust the staff right now. If they do genuinely think that he's their guy, then I'm going to get behind it no matter what. Okay, next thing, Abdul Carter. This is the guy that I think that we should draft. Very strong off of the edge. And here's the thing, by the time that this episode is going out, it will be New Year's Day, which, by the way, Happy New Year's. But by the time this is going out, it'll be New Year's Day, and the game of Penn State versus Boise State will have gone by. Now, if he shows obvious red flags in this game, my apologies. I was completely wrong. But from what I can tell, he's really strong off the edge. And he is what looks like the pass rusher that we would need to truly just become a lot better. Honestly, like, I don't know how else to put it. Like, he looks like he could be a great pass rusher for this team, and he would be the pushing edge, the pushing edge that would make this defense potentially elite, in my opinion, because, like, how many times do you see the secondary actually doing good stuff, but then it just gets ruined because either the quarterback scrambles out of the pocket or he scrambles for a first down or something like that? Like, how many times do you see it just get completely ruined by that? This is one of those times that, like, this is something, not this is one of those times. What was I saying? This is one of those people that could help kill that scenario. And, you know, if we can stop that, then maybe our defense actually goes from being like middle of the road to potentially top 10. Like, genuinely, I believe that. But yeah, Abdul Carter, very solid. I didn't spend as much time on him as I did Shedeur. I spent enough time on Shedeur to the point where we may reach the 20-minute mark of this episode, depending on how editing pauses go and stuff, and filler words, of course. But anywho, next thing, just any offensive lineman, specifically tackles, just any of the tackles, Wyatt Teller, Will Campbell, Kelvin Banks, like, any of those dudes would suffice, but I'm not confident in this one. I know that Callahan has a big problem with right tackle, but if I had to take a guess, none of the offensive linemen in this draft, I think, are good enough to go draft, especially if we go and make a big move for Jedrick Willis, which I think is what's going to happen. Judging by his ties with Bill Callahan, our need for right tackle, his need for a big contract, we'll probably have a decent amount of cap space whenever he comes into town. So yeah, I am expecting this offseason for us to sign Jedrick Willis, and that's really all I gotta say about that. But man, yeah, Jedrick Willis is probably going to be the guy. None of the linemen in this draft. So honestly, I may not even talk about this next week, mostly just because I don't think they're going to draft an offensive lineman. But anyway, last one, Travis Hunter. Not because he's, not because is going to get drafted by the Titans, but just because he's going to be on the table, depending on what New England does, at least, because New England could just trade down and get a crap ton of first-round picks from the Giants, and then they go draft Shedeur. Or they stay at number 1 and they draft Travis Hunter. I think that's the only way that this goes down, quite honestly. Either they're going to get a new toy for Drake May, or they're going to go get somebody later on that could also be a new toy for Drake May, which, if I had to take a guess, they trade down with the Giants and they go get Terriota McMillan. That would be my assumption for what's going to happen there. But if they do stay, then they will draft Travis Hunter, very obviously. That's really all I gotta say. That's the rest of the episode, actually. So, I have Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok all under the Titans Rundown. If y'all want to go follow those, I'll leave the Vols Rundown also in the description. Y'all may have found that one from a reel or a short or a TikTok, whatever you're coming from that I put out about Dylan Sampson's first and last touchdown. Really gonna miss that dude, like I said in Monday's episode. But I'll have all of that linked in the description. Anyway, that's gonna do it all for me. This has been a rundown of your Tennessee Titans. I love y'all, and tighten up.